Sup guys, Zanderson 977 here today to do Tokyo Ghoul episode 2 review. And this episode of Tokyo Ghoul was interesting, I have to say. Was very interesting. We see some very interesting plot developments towards the end of this episode. There's a fight between Kaneki and Nishio in this episode, and also a third point is the fact of Kaneki embracing his ghoul powers, his ghoul ability. Kaneki, first I start off with his whole realization now that he's a ghoul, and he's trying to fight against it. He doesn't like the fact that he's a ghoul. In his mind he says that he's human, he's not ghoul, he's not a monster. So he's placing judgment on the fact that if he succumbs to his ghoul urges to eat human flesh, and he will be a monster and he will no longer be human. So right through this episode up till the very last endpoint, we see him struggle with his psychological warfare of him not wanting to succumb to his ghoul eating urges. At the start of this episode, we picked up where we left off with Toka beating him up and trying to get him to realize that there really is no way around this. He's no ghoul, and as a ghoul he needs to eat human flesh. There's no way around it. Then from there he decides to go back to school and he meets his friend Hide. And upon meeting Hide, Hide brings up Hide says something like he needs to meet with this teacher of his for something that he needs for class and whatever. So Kaneki decides to follow him and go with him to meet this teacher. And upon going to meet this teacher, who does he realize is that it turns out to be Nishio, the same guy with the glasses. As I said in my last chapter, Tokyo Ghoul chapter 1 review, Nishio, this guy with the glasses, he was the one when Kaneki was in the hospital. Hide was talking to him about his friend Kaneki and how he's trying to get him, but he's not able to get through. And he's the same guy when Kaneki was lured to the center of a dead corpse where another ghoul was feeding on. Nishio was the one that showed up, killed that ghoul that was feeding, and was almost ready to kill him when Toka interfered. So immediately he knows that this guy's brutal, this guy's dangerous, and he's not to be trusted. So he has his guards up instantly. And then it reaches a point where Nishio says that he has something that Hide needs and he would need to go home. So Hide decides that okay, I'll come along with you, and then Kaneki instantly gets this fear of him being attacked and butchered, beaten and killed ruthlessly by Nishio. So he says, you know what, I'll come along too. He decides to go along, and upon them walking there, Nishio buys this he stops by this pastry store and decides to buy this pastry, where Hide begins eating it, and Kaneki is staring at him, like staring at Nishio, like, is this dude really going to eat this thing? How is he able to eat this? And we see him eat it and appear to swallow it like a normal human would, but that's not the case. It tastes awful to him as well, because obviously he's cool, so he can't necessarily eat it. And after that point, they all walk into this kind of dark alleyway. Out of the blue, all of a sudden, Nishio kicks Hide away like a ragdoll out of the picture, and then begins attacking Kaneki. And the attacks go on, and it reaches a point where he was stamping on his friend Hide's head. He's torturing him with the fact, right, that he holds Hide's life in his hands, and he can end Hide's life anytime he wants to, and in fact he is going to. And we see him begin to use his powers, and for all the good powers, I have to say they have this kind of um this either tail looking thing or something that comes out from their backs that they used to jump and swing around with. Something that looks like a tail. We see all of them with it. We see Kaneki with it. We see Toka, hers is not exactly like a tail, it's like a gas. But they all have some unique powers coming out from their back here. As the series progress, I'm assuming that we'll get more exposition on what those things are as it relates to their abilities and whatnot. So, he was almost ready to kill Hide and get rid of him when all of a sudden Kaneki says no, he won't bear it, and all of a sudden that same good power that Rize has, where it was like these three red kind of tentacle looking tails came out from behind his back. He used it to jump on Kaneki's own tail and then crawl up to him and then start attacking him with it. And upon attacking Nishio, well, no, upon Kaneki attacking Nishio with that volley of strikes from his tail, kind of piercing him, like he he defeats him and Nishio is seemingly dead. And right before Nishio dies, he says that wait, that's Rize's own power. So Kaneki seems to have gained Rize's own power, which makes sense because he got her internal organs. And at that point, upon defeating Nishio, all of a sudden he gets this kind of um you know Rize in his mind started playing games with him. Like he started visualizing her around the place, and she started playing games with him and started to insist to him that his friend Hide is right there, Hide is tasty. He should just eat Hide and get it over with. And obviously he's trying to resist, but that resistance is, as we've seen, is futile. He becomes so mad with the hunger, of wanting to eat so bad. He later says that he was so hungry that he felt like he would die. So, the sheer amount, because right before this point he was starving himself, not eating enough because of the fact that, as I said, he's fighting this psychological battle of not wanting to eat human flesh because he doesn't want to accept the fact that he is now a ghoul. So, um, because he was already starving himself for so long, he couldn't hold back, even against his own best friend. And then Toka immediately shows up. Toka shows up, and she, says, well, you're going to really regret it if you try eating your best friend. But because he isn't even thinking straight, he gets cross and he's like, move, this is my own food, you can't come near it. And then, he brings out those tail looking things and begins to attack Toka herself. So, okay, she won't hold back, and then she also seemingly begins to attack. The fight goes on. Kaneki was knocked out. He wakes up in Sir's place, that old looking guy that's also a ghoul that introduces him to the whole coffee, drinking thing that ghouls can do. He shows him where Hide is after he's awake and explains all things to him, and then he begins telling him that ghouls are not all the monsters that you think we are. And he says that he will show him, you know um that is the case. And then the scene switches over to Toka with playing with a butterfly on her finger. So what he's saying, as we can see, is true. Those are not always all savage and butchery and just revengeful and just all about eating humans. That's not the case. And Toka, that clip we see of her, she's banged up. She has a couple bruises here and there. So she got banged up pretty well. So it seems that whatever powers Kaneki got from Rize, they were pretty powerful ghoul powers. He seems pretty strong himself by the fact that he was able to defeat another ghoul effortlessly like that, which is Nishio. He was able to defeat Nishio like that effortlessly. And I'm sure that Nishio himself was no bitch, he was no slouch. He could hold his own in a fair one-on-one ghoul fight, I'm pretty sure. So Toka got banged up pretty bad to bring him back to their hideout. And then right towards the end of this episode, it looks like two detectives, they are there talking about the incidents that went down with the binge eater. And The two names of them are the white hair older looking guy is Mado, the younger looking one with the dark hair is Amon. And all of a sudden, Mado, he doesn't seem normal to me at all. The way how he all of a sudden got the urges to start smelling and run around, his body movements, he doesn't seem to be human himself at all. So that's some interesting turn of events. And he apparently got Jason's um what would you call it? Jason's pinchers that he would use. And they did mention something about Jason and the binge eater. They classify them both as S-class subjects. So that's a hint at the power scale in terms of Tokyo Ghoul, in terms of right now, at least the strengths of those two characters that we've seen. Jason from the first episode, the same guy with the hockey mask, and the binge eater. They are both classified as S-class subjects. So really and truly, this episode had a lot of development in it, a lot of story, and the animation, as well as last week, was again on point. It was spotless, perfect. I love this episode very much. This episode was awesome for me. Liked it very much. So Tokyo Ghoul, we finally get a story progression. In fact, Kaneki is now finally embracing his ghoul abilities, his ghoul powers, and he now finally accepts that he will now have to survive as a ghoul and eat human flesh. But it's not all bad as it has as it seems to be initially. And as the episodes go on, we will see how this all works out. So that's it. That's my review. Remember to rate, comment, subscribe. Sayonara.